Everyone. This is our rubric that gives my expectation for what a well-written, well-spoken, well-thought strategy summary would contain. So the strategy description, whether you write it, whether you draw it, whether you say it, would need to have a clear and creative factual strategy. They would need to have a historical event that shows that strategy and a quote from a primary or secondary source to support the claim that you're trying to make. So remember, our question is, how did the Roman Empire gain and maintain its power on cultures around it? And so here's a description that I felt like was higher quality. The Romans were calculated with how their soldiers fought in formations. One piece of evidence for this was the description of a Roman phalanx detailed in Aeneid. Virgil is quoted as saying, "No foreign army could withstand an advancing phalanx." This quote only further proves its might. Okay, so that would be a 4. It had the clear and creative factual strategy. It had a historical event that showed the strategy, and it even had a quote from a primary source to support the claim. All right, so a 3 response would have a clear and factual strategy. It would have a historical event that shows the strategy or a quote from a primary or secondary source supporting the claim. The Romans were calculated with how their soldiers fought in formations. Virgil is quoted as saying, "No foreign army could withstand an advancing phalanx." This quote only further proves its might. So notice that this one was missing that reference to Aeneid. So a 2 would be somewhat clear and factual strategy. So now we're not as clear with the strategy, and then one or the other, a vague historical event that shows strategy, or an unconnected quote from a primary or secondary source to support the claim. And then a 1 would be a strategy description on its own, somewhat clear, but it doesn't have any sort of details to back it up. So remember, this is a little bit tricky. This is what one response would need to have in it. This would be how you'd measure that one response. But I told you there needs to be at least 3 responses to meet my expectation. So the minimum total for this assignment would be 12 points. Now down here, my minimum is at least 3 well-thought reasons totaling a perfect score of 12. What is your perfect score? So that doesn't mean that you have to settle for 12. It might mean that you go to 4 or 5 strategies that the Romans employed, and you work that way. So you set a goal for yourself. And as always, I'm around if you need any help, but try to find answers to your questions through our slides and through our rubric and through your partner before you ask me. Thanks a lot, everybody.